Hello, and welcome to the Joy CEO podcast. I'm your host, Lori Pine, and I am so glad to have you here with me today. What do you do when your world feels like it's falling apart and you still need to show up, lead your team, lead your family, lead your life, and you just want to pull the blankets up over your head and not get out of bed? That's what we're going to talk about today. You can't just run away from home. You can't just quit your job. You can't just make some sort of graceful exit off of the stage of life. And yet you're not sure how to show up and hold all of the emotions that come along with what life is actually dealing you at the moment. Your team still needs direction. Your kids still need to have dinner. Your calendar does not show that your life feels like it is falling apart. If you are new here, welcome. I am so glad you found us. This is a podcast for ambitious women who want to lead and live with joy. Not the fluffy kind of joy, but the joy that is actually a leadership strategy that helps you rise and brings out the best in you and your business. This episode is for the woman who is holding a team together, a business together, while something in her personal life is quietly or perhaps loudly falling apart. The one who walked into a meeting an hour after a phone call that was perhaps devastating and said all the right things anyway, as though she compartmentalized what had just happened so that she could focus on what was at hand. The one who has cried in her car in a parking lot before going inside to face her team. The one who leads as though nothing is happening. The one who, if this is you, there is part of you right now or in some season that you have not fully set down yet, that is facing something that feels hard and crippling and daunting. And yet you are the load-bearing wall to the entire building, whether it's the team or the family or both. And you cannot fail. You have to show up. And the pressure is just daunting. And to my people who keep showing up week after week, thanks for being here. You know I love you. Thanks for coming back. We are really going to get into it today because I'm going to tell you that I have had some really hard seasons. One of them in particular was the hardest. And what I learned about leadership in the middle of all of it, not after it, in the middle. We'll talk about the difference between strength and certainty, why powerlessness is exhausting, and a shift in the questions I had to start asking myself that got me through days that I didn't know if I could get through them or not. I'm not going to pretend it ends up tied all neatly in a bow because it doesn't. That is not true. And if somebody out there is telling you it does, just keep swiping and go to the next Instagram reel. But I do think you'll find something in here that meets you, whatever your hard season might be right now. So buckle up. Here we go. It was 2011 for me. I was working for a major consumer products goods company. I was responsible for a significant amount of business. And my mom came to visit and she had a backache. Little did we know, her body was ravaged with cancer. And so her diagnosis to death was 5 weeks. And in the midst of that, I didn't know that she was going to die in 5 weeks. So I was doing everything I could to figure out what was happening. to her. I was meeting her in Boston at Dana-Farber. I was taking notes. I was listening to the oncologist and then the highly specialized oncologist. I was leaving work. I was leaving my children. I was a single mom. I had a full-time nanny, but my nanny didn't really cover, all the nights and all the overnights unless I was traveling for business. And this wasn't business. This was extenuating circumstances. And so I really had to invite her into what was happening in my personal life. The boys were only 8 and 10 years old. And so I had to tell them what was happening with their beloved grand. I left the team. I left my responsibilities, and none of it was on my terms. It was exhausting and it was scary. And so there was a moment when I was heading south to go to New York City for a meeting, and I got a call that basically said, she's been admitted to the hospital. And this was at like week 3.5. And it was really the end. And so I was in a Ann Taylor suit. I was in a full-blown suit, headed to a meeting. And I packed a bag, kept the suit on, and drove to Maine. And on I-84 in Connecticut, I got pulled over by a Connecticut state trooper. And he said, "Do you know how fast you were going?" And I burst into tears. And I said, "All I know is I'm trying to get to Maine because I'm afraid my mother is going to die before I get there." And he said, "Well, it's not going to help her if you die on your way." And I was like, "You're right. I need to slow down. I need to be present. I need to pay attention." And he actually let me go without a ticket. But I was so tangled up and so afraid and so full of emotion. And it's funny, every time I get to that one stretch of road on I-84, I think about that state trooper and that moment. And I can't help every time I'm in Boston to think about Dana-Farber and that time with her. So I get to Maine. I end up spending 10 days there with her between the hospital, and then she was transferred to the hospice house. And my business is completely on hold. I've been excused, from work. My boss is fantastic about it. Big shout out to Justin. And then she dies and the funeral happens. And then I return to work, quote unquote, back to normal. And I don't know how to show up. I don't know how to go back to normal. I try. I sit in meetings. I say the right things. But on the inside, I am the hottest mess. And I end up in a bathroom stall crying. I end up going to my car and crying. And I can't quite return to myself. And so I look like the same person on the outside. Blonde hair, blue eyes, 5'1". But on the inside, it feels like everything's been rearranged. And nothing about my life is quite the same. And what often happens is we confuse strength with certainty. Nothing felt certain then. Nothing. I didn't know which end was up. I didn't know the diagnosis. I didn't know the timeline. I didn't know certainly what was going to come afterward. And in the afterward, it felt like all of my foundation crumbled. Everything I'd known for 40 years just went away. The relationship I had with my dad completely changed. The relationship I had with my siblings was changing. Everything changed. My dad sold my childhood home. That was now gone. It was a bizarre time. And what I learned is powerlessness is exhausting. When we are so powerless over circumstances, I had no power over her cancer. I had no power over her dying. I had no power over all of the feelings I was feeling. But my mind wanted to solve for it. My mind wanted to fix it. My mind wanted to control what other people were doing, run the worst case scenario on loop. What was the worst, the most catastrophic thing that could possibly happen? And I wanted to search for control. Like, what could I control? But when none is available, it wears you down faster than the grief itself. But somewhere along the way, somewhere in that season, the question actually changed. Instead of how do I control all of this? How do I fix all of this? Because it felt so out of control. The feelings, the people, other people's grief, my grief. The smaller question was, what's inside my hula hoop today, right now? What can I control? And it wasn't about the future. It wasn't about the prognosis or my kids and their whole life and their whole childhood without her, how they would grow up without this loving grandmother who would drop everything she was doing and come from Maine to New York to be with them. It wasn't about the entire business I had left behind. It was just about today. In my hula hoop, I could worry about this moment. I could control this moment and this moment only. And from there, 3 questions that still hold up in any hard season. Who do I want to be when this unfolds? What values refuse to change no matter what is happening around me? What kind of energy do I want to bring into the room and into my life today? And so, who did I want to be when this unfolded? Well, I knew who I didn't want to be. I didn't want to be angry and resentful, and I didn't want to have destroyed relationships with people I loved. I certainly didn't want to have messed up my career. So I really wanted to be somebody who was emotionally stable, who could keep her feelings in check, who could honor her own grief and honor that other people were going to grieve differently. And that didn't make it right or wrong. It just was what it was. The values that I refused to change, no matter what was happening around me. I value generosity, so I wanted to be generous. I value kindness, so I wanted to be kind, even if I felt really judgmental. I wanted to be kind. And that meant kind to myself, even if I was judging myself, and to other people. And I wanted to be able to find gratitude. And the one really interesting thing was I was having a hard time with gratitude during this season. And the one really big gratitude that became apparent to me was I knew that there were people who had lost their child, and I was losing my mother. And so I was really grateful that I was not experiencing the loss of a child. And so then what kind of energy did I want to bring into the room? Well, I wanted to bring authentic energy. And so that didn't mean that I was like crying or being sad or carrying this grief around with me. It meant that I was showing up in the room as appropriately as I possibly could. I wasn't oversharing my grief, but if somebody asked me about it, I would be as authentic as I could. And I made sure that I had a really, really good therapist and trusted people that I could talk to. And they didn't fix things. Nothing was going to fix anything really, but it certainly gave me some place to stand, and it gave me a barometer. It made me feel like I was moving forward instead of being stuck in all of my own emotions and all of my own head spiral. And it helped me to really learn that I needed to lower the bar, that I couldn't have this idea of perfectionism during this season. You can't survive a season like this and hold the bar so high that perfectionism is your goal. I mean, absolutely not. Perfectionism was out the window. The bar was like, how do we get through this? Chicken nuggets for dinner, cereal for dinner. You know, everybody slept in my bed during that time, snuggled in as tightly as we could. I cried in front of the boys. We told stories. They asked if I was sad. I said yes. I asked if they were sad. They said yes. And it was okay. I didn't make any permanent decisions while my life was turned completely upside down. I had to wait for clarity to arrive. And when you're an ambitious type A, used to like boom, 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 let's make all these decisions, that's uncomfortable. I mean, who wants to wait for clarity? But that was part of the lesson, learning to be patient, learning to wait, because anything else would have just been forced and would have fallen apart. Borrowing strength from trusted people, hence the therapist. She had been in my life already for 4 years, and I just stayed on with her for a while longer. She knew the extent of this grief, and she was so trusted and so beloved in my life that she just kept walking this journey with me. We have to have trusted people, people who see us, who understand us, where we matter and we can show up as just our messiest, worst, and best versions of ourselves. And then telling ourselves the truth, this moment of the truth, not the big, whole, fat, big, scary story, but just a moment. Catastrophic thinking can get us in a whole lot of trouble, and it wears us down. I don't know about you, but I can go from like, here I am right in this moment to like the worst horror movie that's even possible. And so just making it right-sized. Where are my feet right now in this moment? And asking myself, like, what do I actually know to be true right now? Not what my fear and my imagination are making up. And then looking for just what's being asked of me today, not my entire future, just today. What is the universe asking of me right in this moment? So if you're going through a hard season, if something is really difficult for you, I see you. I feel you. I walked in your shoes. And courage does not need to be some big giant leap. Most days, it's just doing the next right thing. And what is the next right thing? You don't have to see the whole path. You don't have to have an entire 5-year strategic plan to know how to take the next baby step. Clarity will come with a little bit of action. So, whatever it is you're going through, a little bit of momentum will go a long way. Know you're not alone. Find your trusted people and let them in. I'm Lori Pine, the Joy CEO, and I'm so glad to be doing it with you. Until next time, my friends.